The alternative experience.
The alternative experience.
The alternative experience.
We're all born into this world pure, completely untouched. Every new experience is wonderful. The world is enormous. And we've got the potential to achieve anything. Everything is possible. We are a force of nature. And we are by default a cascade of miracles just to have been conceived and birthed. Our world is limitless. And at that time, our potential is unmatched. Then, slowly but surely, parts of our core personality are unknowingly but slowly drummed out of us through what I call societal agreements. And they're societal agreements that none of us had any say in creating. Think about those energetic, boisterous, talkative, those expressive behaviours that they're scolded by our parents or adult caregivers with those constant, no, stop that, we don't behave that way. So we do know that if you tell a child often enough that they are bad, eventually they will subconsciously believe you. So neurons that fire together, wire together. And as such, what happens is we remove many parts of our personality which actually make up our core person. And by the time we reach adulthood, we've all subliminally accepted these rules of domestication, and we're now ready to self-domesticate. We also domesticate others in our society that we deem to be breaking these invisible rules. We then have our own children, and we unknowingly pass these limiting beliefs and behaviours, and we dampen our children's fire, and that cycle just continues. But what's the problem with this? I hear some of you saying. Having manners, knowing how to behave, surely that's a good thing. But that's part of that domestication. Obviously, we should all want to live in a world of love, respect, empathy, kindness. We should all strive to be understanding of how we affect others. But that doesn't mean that we should all be kind of conditioned into these cookie cutter kids, void of what it is that makes us human. And it certainly doesn't mean that we should not have the same level of love, empathy, kindness for ourselves. And let me ask you this. With these secret societal agreements already in place, do you think we currently live in a world of love, respect, empathy and kindness? On a wider scale, I believe this is deeply detrimental to humankind on many levels. We're stressed, we're polarized, we're divided. We've also lost all connection to who we really are. How many of the great creatives of our times, artists, musicians, actors, philosophers, how many of those have been deeply complicated characters? How many of them rebelled against what we would call the accepted status quo, oftentimes to a fault? Well, more often than not, it's those very faults that make them so compelling, so rich in substance and character, and in turn, so captivating to us kind of normies who are oftentimes stuck firmly in our comfort zones, too scared to let our own creative genius flow. For us, they represent freedom, and subconsciously, we're all craving that same level of freedom. For the vast majority of the world's population, the things that make each one of us uniquely interesting have been beaten out of us. Now, on an individual level, what this limiting mindset does is create a deep, yet unexplained hole within us. Some people describe it as being a passenger in their own life, watching it fly by before their very eyes at a record pace. Some feel completely numb or empty. Other people feel deep stress, anxiety, failure to thrive. And it's no coincidence that the number one deathbed regret is simply, I wish I'd been brave enough to be myself. We filter every aspect of our lives. We curb the behaviours which we deem unsavoury. We hide our true feelings and opinions through fear of saying the wrong thing. We speak through a filter, worrying about how it may affect others or how they may judge us. And we always emphasise the parts of our life that we think other people will be impressed by. We shrink. Now, this comfort zone living creates a subtle imbalance in our foundation. And I believe this imbalance is insidious for many reasons. The first being we are completely unaware of its existence, other than a growing pit in our stomachs. And it builds over years, then decades, at an almost inconceivable pace. So you don't even notice it until it's become so all-consuming. And even at this stage, you don't have any idea what's the cause. Think of it as a plane taking off. And as it takes off, it's 1 degree off of its course. Now, at first, that difference is almost invisible. But fly for hours, and that tiny, tiny imbalance carries you hundreds of miles away from where you were supposed to land. Our core personality works in the same way. A subtle misalignment very early on may be unnoticeable, but when you stretch it across a lifetime, it creates a structure that's fragile, off balance, and simply unable to thrive. This also leads to many of our common physical imbalances, again, slowly and over decades, so linking the two is never going to be on your radar. Your imbalance leads to a perpetual low-grade stress to everything that you do. It makes you feel anxious. This slightly disrupts and overstimulates your fight or flight nervous system. Proper restorative sleep is impossible. Stress, even at a chronically low level, begins to rise. And this directly affects your digestion, your endocrine function, your circadian rhythm, and even your immune function. And as your nervous system dysfunction compounds, this becomes your new default. Your digestive, immune, and hormonal issues naturally progress, and then eventually you become chronically sick. So while much of this may make sense, and it is actually easily supported with the use of research in multiple different fields, more importantly, I think that you will agree that it feels instinctively right. So if you're suffering with any kind of mental or emotional imbalance, would you agree that what I've just gone through would kind of explain how you arrived where you are today? Would that insidious, subtle, long game explain how it happened to you unnoticed? Would it explain that feeling that you have deep inside that there has to be more to life than this? Would it explain why, as a child, you had so much excitement for what life had in store, and the reality which has actually been served? We all know of the saying that there should be more to life than this. Many of us think of it every day, while others do everything in their power to ignore it. But I believe what is missing is the parts of our personality that were judged, scolded, removed and forgotten. It's all of the things we didn't say through fear of judgment. It's all of the interests that we had that we didn't follow because our mates thought they were lame. They are your youness. And when you truly and fully embrace them, that's when things begin to click. When we stop acting our way through life, when we throw off that filter of societal expectation and domestication, and we just start being, the resistance fades, experience becomes richer, deeper, and life really does begin. The anxiety dissipates as the weight of 1,000 metaphorical tons is lifted from your shoulders, and life becomes what it should really be, a deep, profound, rewarding experience full of wonder, that wonder that was promised when we were born. We shouldn't be putting ourselves through unnecessary filters. Having morals, manners, kindness, they should come naturally, and they generally do when you begin to live your life in true alignment. Your ego finally dissolves, your imbalance no longer exists or has power over you, and you just emit an energy which is infectious to those around you. For many people, this may sound woo-woo, and if you're still not convinced, I'll finish by saying this. This life is short, and we will all reach our deathbeds sooner than we think. If that day was today, what would you truly regret? Would you regret not being more polarized and judgmental? Would you regret not putting yourself through more filters, trying to fit in? Would you regret not working more hours? Would you regret not being harder on yourself? Or would you actually regret how you've treated yourself, how you've limited your life experience, and how that's affected those around you? Well, as I said, 90% of people on their deathbed have already spoken loud and clear. They simply regretted not being themselves. But what are your thoughts? Does what I say resonate? Could you potentially be just a little bit easier on yourself? Could you learn to explore and really get to know who you are at that core level? And could it be there is more to this life, and it could be accessed just by simply being? Interested to hear your views. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe, guys. It really does help us to get in front of a bigger audience, and your feedback really does help us to tweak and shape the show. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time. Good vibes. The Alternative Experience.
The Alternative Experience.
The alternative experience.